Welcome back to another edition of Cover One, the Film Room. I'm your host, Eric Turner, and today, Nate Geary's on a business trip, so we have a special guest, and today we are joined by Cover One Buffalo's own Greg Thompson. What's up, Greg?
Hey, what's going on, man? Glad to jump aboard. Excited to do the first film breakdown with you.
Yeah, this is obviously these are sessions that we all love and our fans love. So I'm glad to have you on. Obviously, you're very knowledgeable. You've been crushing content on the podcast and really the simulcast because, I mean, you guys are in video and audio. But I want to jump into this Week 2 game against the Giants, a 28-14 win by the away team, by the Bills. And we're going to focus in on Josh Allen, who went 19 for 30 for 253 yards, 1 touchdown. He pitched in a touchdown on the ground, running it in there on that pin and pull sweep. What were your thoughts on Josh Allen's game on the road again? 2 games in a row. What were your thoughts on Josh Allen's play?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's funny what we get used to in that he's been such a roller coaster to this point that this was almost one of his, dare I say, boring games in that there wasn't a lot of crazy negative plays. There weren't a lot of crazy, high-end deep bombs and things like that. It was just pretty steady and good. So I'm excited to see the detail going through each of the plays here with you to see that kind of game where maybe this is getting a little bit more into what we could see in the future. So maybe boring isn't the right term, but it was that kind of steady game that a lot of people didn't expect from him when he was coming out as a prospect. No,
I'd have to agree. I mean, when I was going through the film last night, the L22 coaches film, it was kind of boring. I mean, a lot of his plays were, he had a few splash plays that we're going to go over, but a lot of them were just like, all right, get rid of the ball here. Here's some pressure. Get rid, put the ball there. There weren't many down plays, and I think that's what we need to, focus in on. There weren't that many lows, which allowed his ups, his potential to really shine through what he brings to this offensive and this team to get all together. Were some, those splash plays of, extending plays, getting outside the pocket, making some ridiculous throws that only, 2, 3, 4 guys in the league are going to make. And we're going to show you that. But overall, what were your thoughts on, maybe the first half versus second half? Because obviously the game plan seemed to be a little different. And I think the Giants actually adjusted in the second half, where in the first half they were, yes, the Bills were pass happy. They went pass heavy. But the Giants really only rushed, for a majority of the time. In the second half, they blitzed a lot more. And obviously the Bills' passing attempts were down in that second half. So what were your thoughts on the game plan from first to second half on both sides, by the Bills and the Giants?
Yeah, it's kind of tough to know how much of that played into, what would it have been like if the Bills' defense wasn't in such control? What would it have been like if the Giants were matching a score for score? Because, I can't lie. At one point, you start to have some different thoughts in your mind of, oh, this is going to be a career game. He was on pace for 400 yards at one point. Right. He hit 205, I think, with about 7 minutes to go in the second quarter. You're talking about, hey, there's a possibility of a monster career game here, and that is often very game script dependent. So what you touched on, I think there was a lot of factors that come into that obviously we're then trying to just kind of impress our will upon them to say that, hey, we're in control here. That's why they added big dominant offensive linemen, so we can lean on them in the second half of games like that. We were able to salt away that lead. We were able to kind of ratchet it back up and get a scoring drive when it was needed. And that, some fans talked about, should we have kept our foot on the throat more, which, I think you can debate, but the play was still steady. I thought that there were some execution challenges in the second half. So whether that was the team not being as sharp, some of the pre-snap penalties, a drop ball, one right. That we talked about with Dawson Knox, some of those things are tough to know exactly who that's on, but it did seem at a high level that Josh was also a little bit sharper in the first half, but I think there's a lot of factors that went into that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, per Sports Info Solutions, Josh Allen in the first half had 21 dropbacks. He was 15 for 20 for 210 yards, and he had 17 on-target passes. On those 21 dropbacks, I went back and looked at the film. He was only blitzed 6 times. In the second half, it was a little different. He had 12 dropbacks. He was 4 for 10 for 43 yards, 6 on-target passes. And of those 12 dropbacks, I counted 9 blitzes. So obviously, the quantity of passes was lower in the second half, but the blitzing obviously was up, and when you look at it blitz percentage wise. So he was a little under pressure a little more in the second half, and I think he did have some struggles here and there. And I think some of that falls on the offensive line too. The Giants started sending 5-man pressures, and they were bringing that middle linebacker, Alec Ogletree, late on twists up the middle, and just attacking the protection, especially when the Bills were in empty sets. You'll see that towards the end of this film review here on one of the plays. But he finished the game when blitz. He was 6 for 12, 50% completion percentage for 67 yards, and he was sacked two times. So 2 out of his 3 sacks given up on the day were versus the blitz. So again, this is something we talked about in the offseason. How is he going to handle pressure? How is this new offensive line? Are they gelled enough to withhold pressure in the next few weeks? Because we got some decent defensive fronts coming up. Obviously, the Patriots in a couple weeks too. And darn well that Belichick's going to attack Josh Allen. He's going to bring pressure. He's going to bring blitzes to not only confuse him on the back end, but to make those decisions quicker and get rid of the ball so that they can't push the ball down the field.
Yeah, it's going to be huge for his development to see how he is able to handle that, and that, not allow them to see that as a weak point where they think their only weapon is to blitz him all the time, and that he can show he can read that, find his hot read, get it out of his hand, and let his playmakers beat it. So it's going to be a huge part of his development.
Now, looking at this passing chart from Pro Football Focus, what kind of stands out to you in regards to, the distribution by Josh Allen to his receivers?
Obviously, you see just the kind of outside versus inside, didn't lean a lot one side versus the other, maybe a little bit more volume to the right, but just a lot more of the production and the high-end element on the outside. But I like the fact that there's no glaring red area. There's no huge downside of, it was a constant miss over here. Historically, he's had some of those challenges short to the right, so still seeing a little bit there is something that sticks out. But I like that it's relatively balanced from what we've maybe seen historically.
Yeah, and the other thing that really stood out, and you heard the coaches talk about it in the post game, was Josh Allen's maturity level on third downs in those clutch times when they need to extend drives. And we saw 4 really long drives against the Giants, and that's a testament to third downs and staying in manageable downs really altogether. But on third downs through 2 games, he's 11 for 15, that's a 73.3 completion percentage for 155 yards. So the yardage isn't really high, but that's high efficiency, and that's executing at a high level, and 1 touchdown, and he only gave up 1 sack. So talk about how Josh Allen has looked on third down and what the weapons that they brought in on the offensive line and on the outside, how it's actually starting to come together and work out really well, especially on those critical downs.
Well, yeah, obviously third down is that money down in the NFL. That's where you're going to decide, who the real playmakers are when teams are, whether they're ratcheting up the defense, whether that's where it matters is third down in the red zone. And being able to see that kind of consistency and that kind of production when it really matters, I think one is a step forward for Josh, and that it's probably naive to think that it's not impacted by having guys like Cole Beasley and John Brown who can get open and be able to give him that window and that separation, and sometimes come through with a big catch. You saw the one that Cole had early on, right in that first or second drive, technically the second drive, where he's diving and kind of snagging that ball full extension on a 3rd and 6, that you're able to pick up that kind of play. And that's a play that we probably don't have somebody that can make that last year. So that's a play where Josh wasn't perfect. He had it a little bit outstretched there, but the combination that Josh made the right read, and then even being a little bit off, having a weapon that can make up for it and make that catch, that's the combination that they've built now. They have a line that can give them just enough time to make it work. They're not perfect, but they're better. They have weapons that aren't going to all of a sudden be exploding to just create tons of plays, but they're better. And then Josh has taken a step forward, and that combination with a little bit of improvement, protection, weapons, and his development is yielding the results we've seen.
Yeah, definitely. And, he targeted 9 different receivers, 8 caught passes. We're going to take a look at a few of these plays. So with that said, let's jump right into the film. All right, the first play that we're going to take a look at is a 3rd and 4 play. We're in the first quarter, 7:31 on the clock. I believe this is their second drive. And the Bills take a play right out of the Dallas Cowboys playbook when Beasley was there. They start in a trips formation, and they motion Beasley to the bottom of the screen, and they settle into a 2-by-2 set, and they're just running that little motion to get an idea on what the coverage is. It's showing his man coverage. Baker, the rookie from Georgia, DeAndre Baker, is on Beasley, and they're just going to run a slant route, a short slant, over the middle. And at the top of this route, I just love Beasley's route. He's so sudden. I mean, the pace of his route, he's not running full speed. He's probably about 50%. And then boom, he's so quick, and that quick twitch at the top. I mean, it makes Baker fall. And the throw's hot from Josh Allen. Don't get me wrong, it's 3rd and 4. He throws it hot, and there's a reason he does that, and we'll look at it from the tight camera angle. But the ball is kind of past Beasley, as they said in the broadcast. But Beasley does a good job of bailing his quarterback out here. And I know Beasley has been taking some heat from the fans early on, some timely drops, especially from some of Allen's best throws. But on this one, he bails the quarterback out here and helps him convert the first down. So, Greg, what are your thoughts on this route combination? And, I mean, Josh Allen's throw, and then Beasley, of course, helping his quarterback out.
Yeah. And obviously why I referenced this earlier, just being able to look at the kind of combination that he gives there, and that you touched on it, his suddenness is just so crazy of how he sets up his routes, and having a weapon like that we just haven't had here in a long time, probably since Stevie Johnson, to have somebody who can set up that kind of route running. And, you're seeing it there, and obviously they're kind of, setting that up. Knox is kind of clearing that out there, and that kind of route combination to clear a little bit of space behind there, make sure that there's nothing crazy. You also have it coming from the other side, where that deep post in the middle is making sure that the safety doesn't come up too quick. So being able to set that up and clear out a little bit of space there. Josh, obviously, we'll touch on it here from the other angle. I didn't pick that up in the broadcast, that, it just looked like something where he threw it and it wasn't an accurate throw, but really it's because he was pressured.
Yeah, and we're going to look at it right here. They're really bringing it here on 3rd and 4. There are 6 guys. They're mugging every gap, basically. You see Peppers on Knox, as you mentioned. I mean, they're really up at the line of scrimmage, showing pressure, and they bring basically every single guy here, and it's a really nice pressure. And you see Devin Singletary, the rookie running back, step into that strong A gap, and Spain might have gotten away with a little something right here, a little jab to the face right there as he kicks out to the defensive tackle, but nothing's called there. But Singletary steps up and walls him off, and you're going to see the edge rusher Marcus Golden right here. He's going to loop inside. This is something they did a lot of versus the Bills, and we're going to see a lot of it over the next few weeks. And but let's take a look at Josh Allen. I mean, he is trusting his offensive line here. His footwork is calm. His eyes are downfield. And, this isn't a deep drop. So he's not getting away from the line of scrimmage with this 6-man pressure. He is basically taking, a 1 to 2 step drop and standing in there and, facing the music here. And he gets the pass off. And I don't think his base is perfect here. As you see, is a little open. He kind of separated from the ball a little too soon. But again, with pressure in your face, you got to be able to throw off platform. And this, I would consider this an off platform throw. And with pressure in his face, it's a really good throw that is a little hot. But Beasley, this is what you get paid for. This is why you paid this guy. This guy is money on 3rd downs. It's something I touched upon in the offseason, and he just helps his quarterback here. So what are your thoughts on Josh Allen stood here in the pocket, man?
Yeah, I mean, you see it coming out of shotgun here. You're not doing your normal, 3, 5, 7 step drop from under center, but he still takes kind of that 1 step and then the hop. And then where you would normally, like you said, want to see him take a nice steady step forward to keep a cleaner base, and he gets a little wide, a little out to the left here. But it makes sense as you see Golden coming right at him, that if he steps up into that, he's stepping his leg right up into Golden's face there. So the fact that he has that arm talent, these are the kind of things that he has that ability to not have a perfect base and still get a ton of zip on the throw, to still be able to get it out there. And then, I know we touched on it leading up into the season a lot, in that the fans' definition of catch radius is often associated to only the AJ Greens of the world, and maybe what we formerly thought of as Kelvin Benjamin. But a guy like Cole Beasley, he still has that ability to have the suddenness and quickness and flexibility to reach for that ball and to be able to get it when it's not perfect. And that's another definition of catch radius there, where you have a guy who can help make up for a imperfect throw from Josh. So I love the fact that he was able to kind of stand in there, never got, dirty with his eyes, wasn't, worrying about bailing out and getting out of there. He stood in there and was ready to take a hit. Thankfully, he didn't take a nasty one here. But I think he checked every box of what you look for in a play like this.
Yeah, and you talked about that arm strength, and the other thing that comes with arm strength is the quickness of that delivery. And he doesn't have his base here, but he's able to generate that. I always talk about torque and how you generate it with no feet here. That torque's going to be generated from the hips on up through his arm, and then of course out that arm and out through his fingertips right there, right? So that torque here that is generated without a base and that quickness of delivery comes in hand here because it does save him from a hit here. I think if it's a slower delivery, if he's got that looping motion that some quarterbacks have, and he doesn't have the zip or ability to generate torque and this quick delivery, I think he may take a bigger hit here from Golden. But good point on Beasley. I think his catch radius is a little different than what we are used to. And this is, again, we talked about this is not an easy catch. It's tough to tell from this angle, but he went with more of a basket catch. So his palms were up and the ball was by him already. And this had some heat on it. We talked about that. So to be able to catch it that way when it's not perfectly framed, it's not perfectly, in your chest or eye level, it was by him already. That's just really good body control, hand-eye coordination. Obviously working with those tennis balls against the wall out there at One Bills Drive helped him on this play. And with that said, let's go ahead and jump into the next play. All right, Greg, on to the next play. 1st and 10 situation, ball on the 30. We're at the end of the first quarter, 2:39 on the clock. It's tied up. It's 7-7 right now, and the Bills send out really one of Josh Allen's favorite plays. Bills are in 12 personnel, so you're going to see the two crossers over the middle. It's going to be Tommy Sweeney to the top and Dawson Knox to the bottom, and this is one of Josh Allen's favorite plays. A lot of people call it a double post. I like to call it a Mills concept because the number one receiver to the top of the screen is running the post. The number two, Sweeney here in this situation, is running more of a deep dig, a good cover 4 beater, a good cover 2 beater. But then you got that deep crossing route from Dawson Knox. So the Bills are showing off some of their new toys, right? They're running these deep crossing patterns that we saw from, the Isaiah McKenzie, Zay Jones, and Robert Foster's last year. And they're throwing in a new personnel wrinkle and putting in the tight ends in there, guys that are big and can stretch a field. So this is a nice little look from Brian Daboll and the staff. And honestly, this was probably Josh Allen's best throw of the day and probably one of his top throws altogether already. And I know they're on a week-to-week basis, Greg. He has throws like this where like, holy cow, add that one to the list, right? And it's a play where he was kind of under pressure, and we talked about this before going live here. You're seeing that blitz off the edge there from the nickel corner, and he's unblocked because Ty Nsekhe, the right tackle, is worried about that defensive end slanting inside there, and there's no one to pick that edge rusher off from the field, and Josh Allen kind of baits him, jumps up in the pocket, and then bounces outside and delivers from the negative 18-yard line all the way to the 46-yard line to Dawson Knox, who is being covered by Janoris Jenkins from the bottom of the screen. So what are your thoughts on this throw, this concept, Josh Allen? There's a lot to uncover here.
Yeah, it's so funny. This is your no-go-go. This is the exact play that we initially fear from Josh Allen, in that it's the Green Bay play from last year and the ugly crossbody interception this preseason. You see him roll out to the right. You're just saying, okay, just live to fight another day. It's first down, throw it away. Don't worry about it. He's on the run. He goes to torque his body, and you get ready. You're like, no, and then you see it, and it's probably the best throw that we've seen from him. And that combination is just so phenomenal that he could put it on the run almost 30 yards on a rope is just so incredible. And you touched on it earlier. He kind of baits the corner into kind of changing his depth on the blitz. Then he rolls out on his own, and just having the ability to have throws like this, it doesn't make it okay for those crossbody interceptions, but it lets you know when people joke about the negative side of hero ball, it's because in his head, he knows he has this in him. And when you see throws like that, it's kind of hard to blame him.
Yeah, and he hits the top of the drop here. I want you to talk about that nickel corner coming off the edge here. Obviously, he's unblocked, but what happens once Josh hits the top of his drop here?
Well, obviously, he sees it coming unblocked as well. He doesn't panic. He doesn't go and all of a sudden, loses his composure here. He realizes that, hey, this is going to get ugly if I don't have any other plan here. And he makes it look like he's going to climb in the pocket, takes that jab step up into the pocket just enough to get the corner to be able to change his depth and go to where he thinks Josh is going to be. And then Josh uses that deceptive athleticism and is able to break, contain, and get out there while still keeping his eyes upfield the entire time.
Yeah, it's a filthy play because, as you said, this is processing. He's worrying about the coverage and how it's uncovering down the field. What are they rolling to? What all these other things. But now he's got an unblocked defender coming at him, and he has to make a decision. He's got no outlet right now. You see Beasley, you see Singletary. They're not in the route yet. So if those guys are the hots, he can't dump it down yet. He needs to make a decision. And of course, when things heat up and he is pressured and there's an unblocked defender like there is on this play, he's going to use his legs. He's going to do what he does best. And that, this is Josh Allen at his best. And we're going to see times like this, as you alluded to earlier, where he makes some dumb plays. And honestly, when we watch it from the All-22, we're like, oh, he's got this. He's rolling right. You got it. You got Knox rolling to his right too. But from the broadcast, you don't see that stuff happening downfield. So you're always holding your breath as you talked about as he goes ahead and exits the pocket here. But I love your point on the angle of this edge rusher here, because he wants to contain on this player. So he typically is taught to attack this outside shoulder right here. So as Josh, pretends like he's going to step up and climb the pocket so that guy can, swing by him, that defender has to change his approach and adjust his approach. And now he's thinking it's a little tighter. Well, that angle obviously allows Josh Allen to break free out of the pocket, extend the play. And as I said, this throw off balance, running full speed to his right with a guy breathing down his neck within what, a yard or two of him to make this throw down the field. And it's perfectly thrown right eye level for Knox, who again, he came from all the way from the other side of the field. I talked about it at the beginning of this play, showing those new toys and showing how a guy like Knox can make a difference, not just with the personnel, but he's running away across the field from a starting corner in the NFL right now. Let's sit back and think about that. One thing you're taught is when you're scouting defensive backs is, how can they close across the middle field? When the wide receiver runs a shallow crossing route or a deep crossing route in this case, how can that corner close? Because that shows off your speed. And obviously, Knox separated, and this throw was on point. It couldn't be any more perfect in a really tight space, not just because the corner's in trail here, but you saw Beasley kind of convert his out route up the sideline, so he's got a guy in trail right there too. And that throw, again, maybe within 5 yards of that defender too. So the fact that he was able to generate that type of velocity, get it down the field in that manner, to that little spot, this is an aim small, miss small throw, and Josh Allen nails it.
No, this is the definition of where arm strength matters. People think about arm strength being, hey, can you throw the bomb 55 yards or 70 yards? And that's just such an infrequent event to occur in a game. This is where arm strength matters, where your platform's not perfect, where you're rolling out, where there's a defender 1 yard off of you, and you have the opportunity to get the ball 30 yards on a laser to a guy in tight coverage. That's simply a throw that there are very, very few quarterbacks that can make. You see right there, Janoris Jenkins, who is a top-level cornerback. He's not the athlete he was maybe 3 or 4 years ago, but he still can do what he's always done from a coverage standpoint. You see him breaking on this ball right there where his arm's about to come down. That difference of the 0.2 of a second that Josh can get the ball there that much quicker than the average quarterback can, that's very much the definition of the difference between a completed pass and a deflected pass. And that there's probably 2/3, 3/4 of the quarterbacks in the NFL, Janoris Jenkins knocks that ball down and he gets there in time to defend it. And Josh can put so much zip on it that the extra 0.1, 0.2 seconds that he can get the ball there faster than the other guys, that's where arm strength matters. Arm strength doesn't matter that I can throw it farther. Arm strength matters that I can get the ball there before you're ready to knock it down.
Yeah, good point there, man. And it's inches. If that is, as I marked it up there, if that's behind Knox just a little bit, that's a deflected pass here, and the Bills are moving on to the next down. And this is just one of those plays. It's an explosive play down the field to a tight end running away from a corner, and one hell of a throw by Josh Allen.
Absolutely.
All right, so Greg, on to the next play, literally the very next play after that, remarkable throw by Josh Allen. He has one of his low moments, and this is not a bad decision. It's just a throw that got away from him. Of course, we're talking about the deep pass to John Brown. It's 1st and 10 2:21 on the clock. The score is still tied up. I like the play action fake here, Greg, and you see John Brown in the slot here. And as I let it roll, watch to the top of the screen, Zay Jones running that little in route. Watch what it does to this deep safety, because when Josh hits the top of his drop, you see a slight little shoulder fake, a little pump fake. Boom, right there. Look at what this safety is doing. He is driving on this route by Zay Jones. And that's what opens up the deep post to John Brown here. But Josh Allen overthrows it by several yards here. And to me, I mean, the mechanics look good, and you'll see it from the tight camera angle. The mechanics look good. I think this one was more of a control issue, trying to put the right amount of touch there, which obviously is something that he's continuously working on. But what are your thoughts on this play from beginning to end?
Yeah, it's funny. We just talked about the accuracy piece and the arm strength piece, and it's not often that you have quarterbacks that accidentally throw the ball 60 yards when they meant to throw the ball 55 yards. That's not a problem most humans on this earth have. But I mean, that's what happens here, is that he, I think, gets a little excited, and that, you see the combination, and he does a lot of things right on this play, and then just uncorks a little bit too much and needed maybe 95% of his powers to hit what could have been an amazing combination of plays to hit that Dawson Knox crosser, and then to be able to follow it up with what would have been an awesome touchdown bomb. And, thankfully they do finish off this drive anyways, but it's something where, it is one of the dangers that when you talk about the accuracy piece of that's not always just missing on target in the window of whether it's right in the guy's breadbasket or leading the receiver. It can also be being how to throttle that power that he has and how to harness what his potential is. And this one did get a little away from him.
Yeah, and I talked about that, little pump fake. I mean, this little play action fake, if you remember in the preseason and even in this game, the Bills threw a little, slant to Zay Jones off a play action in the preseason and, right in this game. But so the Giants obviously have seen this on film. They're thinking that little in-breaking route from Zay Jones is coming from right to left on your screen right now. So that little pump fake does make everyone bite. I mean, you see everyone, they're biting on this right now. They're all flowing here. And of course, I mentioned that deep safety is the one that really bites on it here. And it opens up, John Brown right here to the top left of the screen to get to the middle of the field. But like I said, I think the mechanics are fine. I think he just lost control of the ball here. And as you said, kind of got a little happy seeing that John Brown was, running free. I mean, talk about separation. And
he knew it was a touchdown the moment that he let it go. So I understand the adrenaline pumping because he knew it was an easy one.
Yeah, and, it's to run a post into a post safety, that single high look is not really advantageous to the offense. It's not a route that typically would be run, to a single high look. And that is a testament here on this pump fake and what it does to that post safety. Obviously moves him. And I thought, that was kind of a theme in this game was Allen's eye discipline, and his mechanics were pretty good for the most part. He had a couple glitches, but for the most part, his eye discipline and his composure in the pocket to, a little shoulder fake here and how it moves the post safety. Typically that route by Brown, if the receiver is given options, he would convert that to a dig and come across the middle, and Allen would hit him on a dig route, no problem. But the fact that they run a post into a post safety is not ideal, but Allen makes it work by using that little shoulder fake, and of course throwing the ball downfield. So but it is something that teams, even though it's not completed, teams are going to have to respect this look when they show it later.
Absolutely. I think it's critical to see that, and that, it's a lot easier to be laughing about a play like this because we won by 2 touchdowns. And that, again, they finished this drive with a touchdown anyways. So that obviously makes it a lot easier. But these are the plays that he has to learn to hit and has to be able to consistently come through on. But I think there's plenty of positives here. Like you said, the pump fake, the identification, the ability to put this on film to threaten other teams, and that obviously everybody's aware of John Brown's deep speed. So I think there's plenty of positives that came from this, but yeah, this could have been a fun one.
Yeah, and through 2 games, Josh Allen hasn't really threatened the ball downfield all that often. I think right now, per Pro Football Focus, he's in the 11% range as far as attempts downfield, which is passes over 20 yards. Last year, of course, he led the league in that percentage at 19.7. So they haven't really even tested teams down the field yet. So that's the other scary part of what this offense as good as they've been, they haven't really connected on these big plays. I mean, I'm talking 40, 50, 60 yarders that we saw towards the end of last season. So if they can start to connect on these plays, again, it's only going to open up the offense. It's only going to, put more points on the board. And, this is something that obviously they have to accentuate, having a big arm quarterback like Josh Allen. All right, so now it's 3rd and 10, Greg, and the Bills are still tied with the Giants here. And it's a really nice play here by Josh Allen and really John Brown, because obviously defenses are going to be scared of John Brown getting down the field. As we saw in the prior play, they ran a post and he was wide open. You see the condensed formation, the tight split by Brown here, and he's going to work just a deep curl just past the sticks. But I want you to watch what the corner right here and this safety is doing right here, because obviously they don't want Brown to beat them deep. So what they're doing is they're running a bracket coverage. Look, he's the only receiver going out there. You have Gore from the split backfield look kind of check out into the become an outlet into the flats. But what's happening between the corner and the safety here in this bracket coverage is if Brown were to break to the post here, obviously there is help for that corner. He's not going to get out leverage. So they're both playing over the top of Brown. They don't want to get beat deep. And this allows Brown to work almost like he's going to the corner and then sit on the numbers. And you see what that little movement by Brown does is it lets this safety kind of clear out, and he's going to start to look over here. And then the route at the top of the route by John Brown is just beautiful. He works back to the ball, and then you see the corner right here kind of slip at the top of the break. And, Brown helps his quarterback here, comes back for it, and they convert. So talk about Brown's route here, this combination, and Josh Allen, working through, his progressions and throwing a strike to one of his new weapons.
Yeah, I think the fun part here is you see the benefit of the miss we saw earlier is that it's not always as simple as threatening them with another bomb that they have to be worried about. It's that they don't know when that might be coming next. And all of a sudden that, you see John Brown running his route, 18, 19 yards deep, and those corners are still giving them cushion. You have that corner's hips fully open, looking downfield, ready to run with John Brown. And all of a sudden when he breaks it down and is ready to come back, the corner is not in position. You look at him right there where you're paused. He's completely facing upfield, ready to go with the rest of this deep route, and that he's worried about getting beat deep. And you can't flip around that fast. That's why his foot slips out. That's why he's not ready to come back at the same deceleration that John Brown shows, ready to come back on that ball. And that those are the freebies that John Brown's deep speed gets you, is that he's able to create that cushion because of the threat of getting beat over the top. And this is a perfect example on that same route where, historically, maybe we don't have a guy that they're afraid of like that, and that they're up on, and that they're having to make a contested catch, where instead this is a nice, comfortable, open catch to convert a 3rd and 10. And, Josh is able to show the arm strength, zip it in there before anybody can do anything about it. And these are the kind of free yardage that I think a guy like John Brown gives, that we just haven't had that kind of weapon historically.
Yeah, and the kicker with the talent like Brown is not only can he separate and threaten guys deep, but the little things. At the top of this route, he doesn't just sit on the numbers like typically those landmark throws that we always talk about are completed. What does he do? He works back to the ball, back to the middle of the field, and separates even more from both of these defensive backs. So he's separating from both of these guys. He's in between both of them, and again catches it and converts the first down. I really like his play, and I put it on Twitter how he's quickly becoming one of my favorite studies, and a guy that you literally have to slow down the film to watch him, because there's so much nuance to his play that you don't really see definitely from the broadcast angle, but even from angles like this, and how his speed really threatens and opens things up, not just for his route, but for his quarterback. And let's take a quick look at the end zone angle for Josh Allen. Obviously, it's a split backfield look, and I mentioned how the defense started to run some of these little twists inside here to kind of threaten and take Josh off his spot. But Josh is comfortable in the pocket. He's scanning left to right quickly, and I just love once he hits the top of his drop, his eyes are looking obviously to the right at Brown. That's where he wants to go with the ball. And his feet aren't in position yet. You see him, his shoulders are basically perpendicular to the line of scrimmage. So now once he acquires his target and John Brown, he has to get his feet right. Your eyes have to match your feet. And look what he does. Boom. You see a slight transfer of weight right there, gets his feet in position, and then throws a strike to John Brown just inside the numbers there. I think that just, it's a subtle thing with Allen that we don't always see. But in this game, I thought, again, his mechanics were really good, and I liked how he got his feet in line with his eyes.
Yeah, I think it's just another small incremental improvement from Josh. It's something that, we need to see this consistently. We need to see it as a sustainable part of his game going forward, but it's still awesome to see it, that he's taking those coaching tips seriously. He, like you said, just taking the time to match up your body with what your eyes are seeing, get your feet set, being able to step into it, and then, again, being able to use that God-given arm talent that he has to zip it in there because you've done the other hard work and got your feet right.
All right, Greg. So now we're at the top of the second quarter. The Bills are now up 14-7. It's 2nd and 9, and they're in a backed up situation. We talked about the long drives that the Bills executed against the Giants, and this was a play out of 12 personnel that once, Josh Allen executed that play fake, and he gets into the back of that end zone. He's halfway deep, I think 5 yards deep into the end zone here once he hits the top of his drop, and everyone is at home holding their breath on this play, especially when you have that play action. You get all those linebackers and defensive ends and defensive tackles kind of rushing upfield thinking it's run. Usually, you can get some leakage, especially when teams want to be aggressive. Once Josh hits the top of this drop, he is looking to target Zay Jones at the bottom of the screen, and Zay kind of slips coming out of his break here, and he's covered. I mean, there's no way. You see Josh looking over there. There's no way that Josh is going to throw that. And you got to take into account that he's going to have to throw it, 15, 20 yards downfield. There's no way he's going to make this throw to Zay Jones. So what does he do? He comes back across the field. So think about that. He's setting his body up initially to throw all the way outside the numbers to his right. Now he comes all the way back across the field, climbs and hitches just a little bit in the pocket, gets his feet right, and then throws a dart to John Brown. And real quickly, because this is a play I broke down on Twitter, the leverage that John Brown is able to get on a corner who is taking away, inside leverage. You see him. He's got inside leverage. He's using the boundary as a defender. He doesn't want to get beat deep. He's in a bail technique, and John Brown attacks that leverage several times in this route stem. You see him slightly move that route stem so that he can get into the blind spot initially right there. And then so the DB has to sort of maintain his leverage, and you see him kind of back off there, and then Brown just, sits down, throttles down, and works back the ball for his quarterback. So talk about how much trust that Josh Allen had to have on his offensive line. You see the clock at the top here, Greg, obviously holding down the fort for over 4 seconds here. So, what were you thinking when you saw him take a deep play action pass here, with his back against his end zone?
Yeah, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't anxious, and that goes in several directions. One, just last week we got a safety, in this exact scenario. Historically, this is a play that the Bills offensive coordinator just has never had the faith to go play action on a 2-man route to be able to go and say, hey, Josh, come and save us here out of our own end zone. And that we had the faith in our offensive line, the faith in our weapons, and that honestly, from last year to this year, this is a pretty good example. Your first read there, DeAndre Baker is not afraid of Zay Jones beating him deep. He's not having to turn and get ready to run with him downfield. He knows he can break with it, and if Zay tries to beat him deep, he's confident he can turn and run with it. You have the exact opposite at the top of the screen. Janoris Jenkins is petrified that John Brown's going to beat him deep. He opens his hips completely. He's turning and getting ready to sprint down the field and say, oh no, I hope John doesn't beat me deep. And then Smoke just pulls the brakes, pulls the ripcord, and is able to cut back. And Jenkins has no chance to be able to come back to it, which, just kind of takes that a step further. 3 plays ago, John Brown does go deep. The last play, he goes 17, 18 yards and pulls the ripcord and comes back. This play, he runs 22 yards down the field and then pulls the cord and comes back. And just having that kind of ability to trust your offensive line, to let him go that long, and John Brown to run that mature of a route, that long developing of a route. It's just something we haven't seen in a long time, to have the offense coordinator have that confidence, Josh to have the ability to stand in there, the offensive line to give him that time, and the receiver that's going to threaten the defense and be able to have the ability to come back and do that. That combination of factors is just really exciting to see.
Yeah, those are all great points. Dable always talks about having faith in his quarterback. I mean, what better way to show that, to call a play action 7-step drop into the mid end zone here. And I love the nuance to John Brown's route here, and he's so smooth. They always talked about that in camp, and we're seeing it here. He separates versus Jenkins, works back to the ball, becomes QB friendly. But the other thing with Josh's mechanics on this play, obviously a nice deep drop, and he likes taking these deep play action drops. He feels like once he gets to the top of his drop, he can really get rid of the ball. But his first option is taken away, and as I mentioned earlier, he's looking all the way right here. His whole body is already looking out that way. It's such an extreme to come all the way back across the field, and you see him flip his hips right there. Boom! Now he's going to his other target, knowing and trusting, honestly, because look, he doesn't waste any time when he flips his hips to throw it to Brown. It's almost like he has eyes in the back of his head here to flip his hips and then immediately get rid of the ball, get his feet in position to go with his eyes, and just a really good play from the pocket and trust in these offensive linemen. And you see everyone's coming downhill on him, and he's just, calm, composed, and working through his progressions, and, obviously getting his offense out of a big spot here, as you mentioned, something that didn't work as well last week.
Yeah, this is a play historically that would have been a second handoff. Live to fight another day. The team would have just taken their medicine and moved on, and having the confidence to be aggressive here is such an exciting vision for our future.
No, definitely, man. Again, 4.1 seconds. I mean, that's a lot of trust in your quarterback and offensive line. All right, Greg, next play is top of the third quarter. The second play coming out of the half. It's 2nd and 7. Bills are up 21-7. So the Bills send out a 3-by-1 set, a nub tight end set into the boundary at the top of the screen. You have Dawson Knox and Devin Singletary run into the flats there. But this is the play that Josh Allen gets rid of the ball quickly to Dawson Knox, his rookie tight end. And Knox does drop it. Coming out of the half, and the theme in the second half was the pressure from the Giants. And the Giants do bring a pressure here from Alec Ogletree right up the middle, and you'll see it better from the tight camera angle, how Allen stands in there and delivers this quickly. But talk about obviously the route by Dawson Knox and the placement here. Again, we'll probably see it from a better angle, the end zone angle. But, the strategy in the second half here on the offensive side of the ball and how the Bills were trying to actually get the passing game going here, right?
Yeah, well, and it's funny. We talked earlier about how different players have different kind of definitions of catch radius, and that obviously Dawson Knox is a different athlete than Cole Beasley per se. So, where Beasley is doing it more with separation, quickness, flexibility, Dawson Knox is running his route directly into the defender there, using his body to kind of wall him off, come back and be ready to make the play there. And that, I got a little frustrated with fans talking about, oh man, why did we take our foot off the gas? We weren't even trying to do anything. Well, if Dawson Knox makes the catch on this for a 20-yard gain on that first drive, we're now almost at midfield. We're ready to now start, get a good drive going. It looks an awful lot more aggressive. So this is where I made some of those points with fans about execution versus game planning, that, Dable called a nice play here. He didn't call the drop the pass play.
Yeah, and I mentioned, that 5-man pressure. Here comes Ogletree down the pike. He's looping inside there, and he's pretty much unblocked because Feliciano is trying to pass that defensive tackle to Morse, but Morse is kind of occupied here. So it's tough for him to get back in position to pick up Ogletree, but it doesn't matter. Josh knows, based on what he sees pre-snap, that they're in man coverage, and he wants to attack Peppers. I think that was a theme for the day. Attack Peppers in the run game. You saw some bad tackles and angles and processing by Peppers, but here they try to attack him in the passing game. And what better way to do that, with a big tight end like Knox? And as you said, he's got to be able to make contested catches. He's got to be able to make a catch with the guy basically in his pocket. There's slight separation, but the throw versus pressure is decisive. And it's on a rope, don't get me wrong, but these are plays that he was brought in to make. Stretch the field, stretch the seams, go over the middle versus safeties and linebackers, and make this play for his quarterback. And he missed a lot of time this offseason leading into the regular season, but this is a play I'm sure eventually he'll make. But I like Josh Allen's thought process here. He knows where the blitz is coming from. He knows he's going to stand in there and possibly take a hit, but he's decisive, and he delivers the ball to his rookie tight end.
Yeah, I'd love to, give Dawson Knox some good news that, this isn't going to happen all that often. But unfortunately, your job is now the tight end of the Buffalo Bills. The quarterback of the Buffalo Bills is Josh Allen. He's got a howitzer where most people have a right shoulder. You're just going to have to get used to catching missiles like these. And that, I know that's not an easy ask. And especially like you said, without the reps and the continuity and the ability to kind of build a chemistry that you might have early. But, he whips his head around and that ball is on him immediately. But we need him to make that catch. This was a on-target play right there in stride, right at eye level. This is a perfectly good pass, and we need for him to be able to complete that. So I get it that there was some heat on this ball and that's not an easy ask, but that's what your job is now, and you got to come through.
Yeah, totally. And just a side note here, while Deion Dawkins didn't have his best game as a pass blocker, I thought on this play, it's probably his best rep because it shows kind of his processing and ability to counter. You see the edge rusher kind of go with some power here, a power shove, and you'll see Dawkins just snatch traps him right there. And then, I love how he just drops on top of him. Here's all of my weight on top of you, dude. Remember where I'm coming from.
Yeah. No, oh, man, I don't know how I accidentally flopped on top of you here. Pardon me. Let me pick up my entire body weight off of you. Yeah, it's funny how that happens.
No, definitely a good decision again by Allen and delivery to his rookie tight end. Just got to see Dawson reel that in next time. All right, Greg. So now this is one of those moments in Josh Allen's career, and we'll even narrow it down to this game on 3rd and 6. Ball on the 40-yard line. Bills up one possession, 21-14. They are faced with a big play here. Ball's on the 40. So hypothetically, if they don't get any yardage here, Sean McDermott's going to have a pretty difficult decision, right? I mean, you're going to punt it or you're just going to go for it. I'm sure the analytics crowd will tell you what they should be doing if that were to happen. But fortunately for the Bills, Josh Allen and his clutch gene comes through on this play. You're going to see another 3-by-1 set. John Brown to the bottom of the screen, tight to Ty Nseke into the boundary. So you're going to see him try to run a dig route, but the Giants do bring pressure again. You're going to see a blitz from the second level here, and Josh Allen's working left to right, so he's taking the snap, working left to right, and the Giants run a little twist from the boundary to the bottom of the screen, and that pressure gets right into his face as Josh Allen hits the top of his drop and is starting to scan here. And of course, it's 3rd down, and he's looking to the right. He wants to get it to Brown here. He trusts Brown. Obviously, we saw that many times in this breakdown. As he hits the top of his drop, pressure's in his face from Marcus Golden. So he undresses the defensive tackle and then breaks the pocket. And again, this is a good Josh Allen play. But when you're watching this from the broadcast angle, you're saying, oh my God, who's coming into the frame? Is it a Giants defender or is it a Bills wide receiver in John Brown? And of course, it's John Brown. He converts. And I think we both can agree when this play happened and the way it unfolded to John Brown here, once this was completed, what did you say when you're sitting on your couch, Greg?
Yeah, we talked about it kind of prepping for this. This was ball game, and there are not a lot of narrative elements in this play. In that, fans were a little frustrated in the second half that we hadn't put up any more scores yet. It's still, we only had 21. The Giants had come down and scored, had given the ball back, and that if they stop it here, traditionally this is a spot where, especially on 4th and 10, yeah. I think Sean McDermott punts here, even though it's at the 40 versus a 58-yard field goal attempt. And the
Giants have been moving the ball, yeah.
Yeah. So this is a huge play, something where, now you're talking about you're getting past the initial route, you're getting past the initial protection, you're kind of into scramble mode. This is where you get nervous that, do we have the continuity? Do we have the chemistry? Do the receivers understand Josh well enough this early in the season with the reps, the limited amount of reps they've had to be able to produce in a spot like this and to see them come through, Josh to keep his eyes downfield, John Brown to realize what's going on, break off of his original in-breaking route and to flow back with the way Josh was rolling to the sideline, get himself separation and to create space, show himself back to your quarterback. I think this is a really encouraging play.
Yeah, and I mentioned that the Giants brought pressure here, and they're going to bring number 31 right here. And as the ball is snapped, you're going to see the Bills are in good shape. They have the slide side of the protection, so these three are going to count for the 3 Giants defenders right here. So they're in good shape there to the field. To the boundary side, I mentioned the Giants started to attack this empty set protection. Of course, with Singletary going out into a route, you have empty protection. So that's a 5-man protection. And what they did was they just jumped this guy into the B gap, and they started to loop the defensive end, Golden here, into the A gap. And as I mentioned, Josh is initially scanning left to right. And by the time he gets to the middle of the field, he's looking right at Golden, coming right at him. And you see Feliciano does his best to, drive Golden wide of the spot. But that also trips up Inseke. And so the defensive tackle is free and clear right here. And Josh Allen plays above the scheme, makes a heck of a play by break and contain here. And he almost breaks this guy's ankles. I mean, look at, goodness, man. I mean, when you saw that live, we're like, oh my gosh, is he okay? Breaks contain. And then, of course, and you can't even see him here. And we're sitting watching this on the broadcast, and we're like, oh my God, who's catching this? And then you see John Brown come into the frame and catches it, and like, that's ball game. That's ball game. And that's just a great play by Allen of playing above the scheme. The protection doesn't hold up versus this 5-man pressure. And, he just plays above the scheme and makes a play when the team needed it.
Absolutely. And, the ability there to kind of create an ad lib is part of that exciting ceiling that we talk about with Josh Allen, and that, the incremental development we're seeing on the small pieces of it are what's going to make him sustainable and raise the floor. But the high end of it is where he can create when things do break down. And that, like you said, above the scheme, when it's not drawn up that way, that wasn't designed for him to jab step inside and know that he's going to be able to then break contain around a defensive tackle, and that's just innate instinct that he has available to it. And that the fact that I think maybe last year's Josh might have been looking to run here, might have been looking for something different, and the fact that he has his eyes up looking for his receiver as he's rolling out, and then he catches eyesight with John Brown to be able to come back. And again, that's not where John Brown's route was either. John Brown ran an in-breaking route, so that was John Brown having the IQ to be able to align that, hey, I'm past my route, what's going on, let's look back, identifies that, hey, my quarterback is broken contained, my quarterback is broken out of the pocket, I need to now rally and figure out how I can make myself available to him. And that combination just shows the fact that they're already doing that 2 games into their career together. I think speaks really well to the potential that these guys have. Yeah,
I can't wait to watch Josh Allen progress in this offense. And honestly, I haven't really said it yet, but through 2 weeks, this offense looks completely different. And I'm not just talking the personnel. Of course, that plays into it and how they can game plan and scheme things. But I thought overall, the first 2 weeks, the offensive staff's ability to game plan and tailor their plan to what they saw on film of the opponents, the Jets and Giants defenses through 2 weeks, has been really a revelation. And then you add in game, because you saw the Bills make some adjustments to some of the coverages that the Giants were playing in game. I'm just happy to watch Allen progress in this offense, and with guys like John Brown and Cole Beasley, who are very important in these third and medium, third and long situations, when the game's on the line, when you need to put a drive together to secure the win and burn more time off the clock. This was just a clutch play by Josh Allen. So, all right, Greg, so it was a great film session. We saw some good, we saw some bad, obviously. One thing I do want to highlight is Josh Allen's throwing under pressure. It's something that, again, we've talked about this entire offseason, how he's going to be able to handle pressure and those decisions and some of that hero ball, if he can eliminate that when he is under pressure. And so far, I mean, he's only been pressured 33.8% of the time through 2 weeks. If you look at his adjusted completion percentage, which is accuracy percentage right here, that column right there, you see among quarterbacks that have 25% of the dropbacks for their teams, he's number 1. So that means that when he's under pressure, he is able to still complete passes at a 92.9% rate. That and adjusted completion percentage, if you guys don't know, it takes away any, throwaways, spikes, drops. It takes all that into account. Right now, he's sitting in first place in that stat. And I mean, obviously, the offensive line has helped with that. But I also think that having a guy like John Brown and Cole Beasley, those guys that can uncover and separate versus man coverage, has allowed him, when he is under pressure, to, as we saw, ad lib and make a play outside of the script or structure of the play. And so talk about what your thoughts on seeing this stat, because this is an eye opener.
Yeah, I can't lie. This is the most encouraging one I've seen so far. So besides the eye test that we've obviously seen in the film breakdown of some steady incremental improvement, having it backed up here that they're literally showing one incompletion being his fault, that on him, that every single other one out of the ones that were there, that he consciously threw it away 6 times, being able to have a handful of drops, and that, you know, he's now making those good decisions. 92.9% adjusted completion percentage is absolutely incredible to show his development and good decision making and what's there when it really matters. So, you know, we talked earlier in the breakdown about the importance of third down and red zone. Much of that is when they're going to be under pressure, because that's also when the defense is going to bring and ratchet up their pressure the most. So the fact that he's coming through in those plays is incredibly encouraging for his progress.
Yeah, and he's, you know, middle of the pack really when you talk about sack percentage. And again, I think that comes back to some of the personnel and decision making. You know, having guys that can uncover and get him out of tough spots. Of course, he doesn't have that many yards, but having smart decisions and guys that can uncover, as we saw from John Brown, I think that's helped overall in this statistic. And, you know, if he can continue to play at that level, minimize mistakes, minimize hero ball and bad decisions, I think the sky's the limit with this guy.
I think this really speaks to his potential in that where it's going to matter, and that he's never going to be a pinpoint perfect guy that is never going to make a mistake. It's that, hey, are his big time plays and the positives going to outweigh the negatives? And seeing something like this really encourages you that is a potential.
So now going forward, you know, they have the Bengals this week. Talk about what you're looking forward to, maybe even, you know, how they should attack this Bengals defense.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting that a lot of fans have now seen probably a little bit more pass heavy game plan than what we expected coming into the year. And this week, tomorrow night, we're actually going to have Joe Goodberry from the Cincinnati Athletic on to preview the Bengals game. And we're kind of excited to kind of talk about the shift that we may see this week, and that after playing 2 teams who are really stout up the middle, you know, good defensive tackles, good linebackers, able to keep things there, but a little bit weaker on the outside. Now we're going to play a team that's honestly been bludgeoned in the running game the last couple weeks. And I think this is really going to show how willing Dable is to really flip the script and identify what is the greatest weakness on that defense and how to pinpoint that. And I think we're going to see a more run heavy approach. And then when we do pass, I think it's going to open up a new option.
So we're looking at the play action percentages right now, you know, per Pro Football Focus. And honestly, through 2 weeks, we haven't thrown that much play action at defenses. But talk about, you know, why that is. Right now, we're at 12.5%. Talk about maybe week 1 versus week 2, and why maybe versus the Bengals, if you're going to pound the rock with that power run game, how they're going to push the ball down the field.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. So obviously when you have a team like the Jets who have a combination like Quinnen Williams and Leonard Williams, the risk of play action is that up the middle pass rush is going to get there before you can get into your run action fake and get set up for the pass. So I thought it was maybe a little confusing that we ran 0 play action passes, but I get the logic of why you wouldn't be as play action heavy against a team with that kind of approach. Whereas now I think that we saw what the Cowboys did to the Giants in week 1. I was glad to see that we did get a little bit more into that, saw a little bit more of the play action game in week 2. I think it really might ratchet up a little bit further here, that I think we might see our biggest tilt towards run heavy play altogether, but that is going to open up so much more from a play action standpoint. And I'd love to see us take more of those play action deep shots. You know, maybe we see some combinations with a little bit more Robert Foster and John Brown on the field together, testing them on the outside. And this might be the week that we see a little bit more of that to test them over the top with those kind of deep shots off play action.
Yeah, that thought really excites me. And with that said, we're going to wrap this up. I appreciate you pinch hitting for Nate Geary today. So where can everyone find you on Twitter?
Yeah, come and find me at Greg Thompsett, GregTompsett. I think it's important that you had somebody on who has even better hair than Nate does. So anybody on Twitter, if you weren't sure, let him know that you were excited that somebody came on and really even stepped up the hair game even further. I love the opportunity here. Really enjoy what you and Nate do. This is a great time being able to go through and break down our team. Anybody who hasn't had a chance, come on over, check us out at Cover One Buffalo. Aaron and I have a good time and be able to kind of preview the game each Wednesday night, break it down right after the game, every post game, and looking forward to more of your breakdown to Nate going forward.
Thanks again, Greg. And until next week, this has been Cover One, the Film Room.